Welcome to the Average Australian Podcast.
Oh, what a fabulous volley from Tim Cahill! You will not see a better goal than that at the World Cup this season. Oh,
Big
great
save.
save again by Swanson!
Huge save.
Cahill! Tim Cahill has done it again!
Might drop for Fornaroli! Oh, that is simply brilliant!
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Average Australian Football Podcast. This is episode 29. It's a special and somewhat earlier podcast this week thanks to Anzac Day and the public holiday. We've got a whole bunch of football news and results to talk through, and to do that I am joined once again by Edin on this week's show. Edin, welcome back. How's your day off treating you?
Yeah, very well. Barely left the house today, but I did. I got a little bit of sunshine earlier, so I think that's it. I'm done for the day.
Yeah, I got my sunshine when I was doing the washing, and now I'm back in and being a hermit, pretty much.
Retreat indoors and enjoy your day off. That's right.
Exactly. So, what are your thoughts of this weekend's football? It's been pretty interesting, right? The FA Cup, we've got the A-League finals, obviously some big results there, and Champions League draw too. It's been a busy week.
It's heating up. It's definitely heating up. I think we'll start off with the A-League because I thought it was actually a pretty good weekend for the A-League, especially that first game, Wanderers, Brisbane Roar. What a cracker. That was a top-notch game, I thought. Awesome way to start off the finals.
Yeah, it was a fantastic game. I thought the first half was kind of slow, but from that point forward it kicked off. Both keepers were excellent. Surprised that the red card didn't have more of an effect on the game itself. It seemed to, like after that point, sort of like set into a tone where both teams thought, I think they'll go into penalties. I don't think really did enough to push for that second goal, but I do think the right team won. But yeah, it was a great game. Yeah,
it was just helter-skelter stuff. I was surprised. I mean, I think we got or at least I got my predictions way wrong, probably in every aspect, because I really thought the Wanderers would come out a bit slower and maybe just sort of feel it out a little bit. But they went for it straight away. They had the Roar under the pump from the get-go, and the keepers were on fire. All three keepers, if you can, not many times you can say that in a game, but all three keepers were on fire. And it was a good showing from the Wanderers. They took the game to the Roar from the get-go. I thought they made the effort. That early miss, I think, when Junpei ran into the box, passed it to Santalab missed. They just didn't have anything to show for all their dominance early on, and then slowly, like Brisbane Roar worked their way back into it, and like you said, probably in the end deserved to win, but only just.
It's a question mark we had over the Wanderers all season, right? If Santalab's off, not performing to the 100% that he can, like you just question who their second and third players are from an impact point of view, and they look good. I agree with you in the first half. They probably should have gone ahead, and had they done that earlier, the game could have been completely different if that penalty was like to go 2-0.
Yeah.
And disappointing for the Wanderers, but I think their big moment was when they missed out on top four. Those last two games, drawing both. Could have been a bit different for them.
The goals were always the question mark for the Wanderers, and like you said, with Santalab, if he doesn't score, they really lack goals, and they played well, but they just didn't have anything to show for it in the end. And Brisbane Roar, that's just typical for them. They always leave it late. That's just their style. So I thought it was a good atmosphere, good game, good way to start off the finals. And I think Brisbane Roar, they're in with a chance next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go with a Melbourne Victory side that's had the break, extra time, obviously making the players go through a bit more, but, with a week off. I'm not 100% sure if there's Asian Champions League.
They do. They have Champions League. I think the word on the street is that they're going to probably be leaving most of their first team behind. Like, they've got a chance to make the next round of the Champions League, but it's faint. And I think they're better off probably concentrating on the finals. At least that's what they think. So I think guys like McLaren, probably the keeper, Broich, these guys are all going to be staying back. So it'll be a second string side for the Champions League, and I think they're just going to see if they can jag something.
It's interesting that point, right? Because, like, what do you think's more valuable? Winning the Asians Champions League? Like, obviously they're not guaranteed to do that even if they put their full strength out there. I think they're third, aren't they, in their group? Like, equals second or something?
That's
goal
right.
difference. Yeah, so I mean, it's not 100%, but winning that, I think, would put them into qualification. But yeah, with Melbourne Victory coming up, maybe it's best to go for a finals that they probably think they can make.
I think so. I mean, look, to be honest, I think if you asked teams now, I think they'd probably say they'd want to win the Champions League. I mean, you look at Wanderers when they won the Champions League. You win the Champions League, you get the prize money, you get the exposure that puts your team on the map, you get into the Club World Cup. It just kind of does a lot for you business-wise and for your club and for your brand and things like that. And I think maybe back in when the A-League first started, you would have asked teams, they would have said, they'd rather win the A-League. But these days, I think you'd rather win the Champions League, but would you rather, make it to the A-League Grand Final or make it to the next stage of the Champions League? Well, you'd probably rather make it to the A-League Grand Final because,
Yeah, exactly.
like I said, making it to the next stage of the Champions League, that's tough. Winning it, like the Wanderers did, that's, not going to be repeated for a while, I don't think, by an Australian team. So I think the Roar are right to concentrate on the A-League finals.
Yeah, especially with the landscape changing in the Asian Champions League with China money.
That's right.
It's a lot more difficult now. So, yeah, I do agree, and they have an excellent chance against Melbourne Victory, which we will talk about in a little bit. Let's move on to the second game, Melbourne City versus Perth Glory.
Go the Glory.
Go the Glory. Before we talk about...
Back on the bandwagon.
Were you off it, were you?
Yeah.
You were? Okay. I was still pessimistic, but yeah. I think I'm just so cynical that I'm with them, but they're probably their worst enemy in terms of faith and confidence in their team. Before we go into the result itself, let's talk about two things. First, let's talk about Nicolas Colazo and Thomas Sorensen set to leave. Obviously, question marks over their manager too. I think he's gone as well, personally. I don't think Melbourne City can have a manager like that. I think they need to go big. Someone with their own strategy, their own philosophy, and because as we saw, right, the most expensive A-League team constructed, didn't look anywhere close to that.
That's right. I mean, look, Colazo, I think, was always going to be touch and go because I think he's on loan from Boca Juniors, and it was always a one-year deal. So whether they extended him really depended on whether he played well. To be fair to him, I mean, they played him everywhere. He was on the wing, left back, centre back, midfield. He was just all over the place, and he couldn't settle. So he was like their utility player, which is a shame because I think he's a bit more classy than that. Thomas Sorensen, he's been a good servant now for a couple of years, but he's probably on a fair bit of money. And now that, Bizanis is kind of the number one, they probably want to get maybe a younger number two in to really push Bizanis. So those two departures are fine, I think, but I think you're right. Valkanis has to go. Surely.
He has to. Surely,
This is, I think if you're being critical, and I think Melbourne City or the City football group will be, this was a pathetic season from City. Like you said, far and away the biggest spending club in the history of the A-League, $9 million salary. And all they got to show for it is an FFA Cup trophy, and knocked out in the first week of the finals at home by Glory. Exactly. Who have leaked almost the most goals of any side in the whole season.
It was only their second away clean sheet for the entire season.
Wow, yeah. I mean, and like you said, okay, one, they lost, that's one thing, but it was just the manner, there was just no passion. The Glory were fired up, the Glory were putting it all on the line, the Glory were just digging in. The Glory were brilliant.
I think what's telling about the Glory's performance and how poor Melbourne City was the second half wasn't like the first half. The first half was completely Perth Glory. They were in control of the ball. They looked like a team that were going to put 4 or 5 past them like they did the week before. But the second half, they came out and Melbourne City took control in terms of possession. But Perth Glory looked so comfortable in defence, and that's probably the first time I've really seen a Perth Glory team deal with a top 6 team in such a manner. Melbourne City looked out of ideas.
Yeah.
Cahill couldn't get into the game. I thought there'd be set pieces. And Perth Glory, credit to them, they made some big statements. They kept Reece Williams on the bench. They could have risked him, and they looked so comfortable, especially in the air.
Yeah, I mean, credit to Glory, they did look comfortable, and they worked hard. They were everywhere. They were hassling. They were putting pressure on everywhere. They were all over the City. So fair credit to them for that. But like you said, in the second half, City took control. Perth dropped back, but City had no ideas. They had no penetration. They were static. There was no movement. So it was easy for the Glory in a way because City just offered nothing, no ideas, no creativity. And you thought, okay, well, when you run out of ideas and things, well, at least whip it into Cahill. And then a couple of the times when they had a corner, they took a short corner.
Yeah.
And made a meal of it and stuff like this. And it's just, if I was a City fan, I would be fuming. If I was City Football Group, I'd be fuming. That's pathetic. It was just pathetic.
You talk about the fans, like, did you see the attendance? Like, less than 10,000 at a Melbourne City game in a knockout final. Like, how does that happen? Like, it's so different from the start of the season. Like, why are they not showing up? Is it purely because the AFL's back? I mean, we spoke about this before, but also on a 7 p.m. on a Sunday, like, it doesn't seem like the best day to have, like, a knockout final, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got to question the scheduling there. I thought the same. I thought 7 p.m. on a Sunday night, that just doesn't sound right. I actually was surprised because I thought it was going to be on a Saturday night. And so for a Sunday night game, that's harsh. I mean, to be fair, City have struggled for crowds all season. They've struggled to engage. I think there's probably not enough difference between them and victory. And if you're a football fan in Melbourne, you're probably going to go for the victory. So they've struggled to differentiate themselves there. But yeah, I mean, it all kind of combined, and just the fact that I think the fans just weren't that hyped, because it was just a whimper, in the way that they ended their season. They just kind of staggered over the line into the finals. There was no momentum going in, and they're just not playing that exciting football. They were last season with Moy and Fornaroli and the like, and this season it's just fallen away. And I think Valkanis has to go. Like, I don't know who they're going to replace him with. I mean, I think he did all right in the sense that, mid-season coaching change, you probably will go with the assistant just because he knows the club, he knows the players and things like that. But he's got to go. Like, he didn't tweak anything really. He didn't bring anything new to the table. And he couldn't arrest the slide that they were on. So I think his head's got to be on the chopping block.
One of the biggest telling moments for me in the game, I think it was like the 85th, 86th minute. Yeah, fair enough, it's 2-0 down, but I saw, this is on the left side of the pitch, I saw Diego Castro run past two City midfielders. Like, as casual as you like, outruns them. Like, Castro's 38, 39?
37.
37.
I think,
yeah, like, it's just the mentality there. Like, I just don't feel like... You alluded to it just before, like, I don't think they've got an identity, and I don't think the players are ultimately fighting for each other, and they've got some big rebuilding to do because I assume they're going to go out and spend the same sort of money on different players, and I think they need to be far more strategic on what sort of type of players they're bringing in. Like, you don't want to see another, like, Cahill, Fornaroli situation next season.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Cahill's been good this season,
has,
11 goals. I think his performances have been good, but like you said, whether that's upset the balance of the side, that's one. And two, they've just got too many fair weather players. Like, they've got all these, like, you look at their bench was like Fitzgerald, Caceres. These guys are all just the same kind of player, like Luke Bratton. There's no, I don't know, there's no fight in those players.
There's
They're
no,
all just
like,
kind of
destroyer.
Nah, there isn't.
Like a Dimas or
they just like that midfield. They didn't have a midfield. All their players are just way too attacking. No one's there to do any defending. No one's there to harass and put pressure, and they just lack the midfield and a spine down the middle of the park there. And yeah, they big question marks over City. But this is the good thing, at least for them, is that they've got the City group. They know, I think, what needs to be done, and they hopefully they're going to do it. And I think we'll see a different City side next season. But go the Glory. I think they were brilliant. Full credit to the Glory. Like you said, Castro just on fire still, just unbelievable. Yeah. But, just the rest of the side as well. Everybody put in guys like Julbic, who have had question marks over them all season. Just a brilliant game from him as well. Chianese, I think, has been a good addition to Glory as he gets fitter, and he's a classy player. I think he's a good addition for them as well. But, Glory, it's going to be an interesting game next week as well for them because they got nothing to lose now. So they go to Sydney. Is it
on the Saturday?
Glory.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's going to be a cracker. I mean, I just think Glory. They got nothing to lose. They're going to go all out and attack.
Do you give them a shot? Because I feel like if the second half they give that sort of performance in the second half, like they did against City, they defended well, but they sort of conceded possession. They do that against Sydney, they're going to get killed. I think their first half was very encouraging. Yeah. I thought their defensive performance itself was very encouraging, but they need to combine both for a full 90 minutes to stand like any sort of chance, I think.
Look, I think the worst thing they can almost do against Sydney is score early. And that's what I thought even against City. I just thought hopefully they're not going to park the bus too early because you can't drop deep like that with, a whole 30, 40, 50 minutes to go and just absorb that much pressure. Against Melbourne City, you probably could because they just didn't have a clue. But against Sydney, I don't think you want to be doing that. So it's almost best for the Glory not to score too early and just stay in the game for as long as they can. Because that'll give them the momentum to go forward and the need to go forward. It's going to be tough. The thing I don't know about Sydney is, are they feeling the pressure now?
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at their mentality this season, you'd say they haven't felt the pressure all season because they've been on top and, FFA Cup final notwithstanding, you would never say that they've really choked or that they've ever really felt the pressure. They've had a couple of poor games, but even in those ones, they've managed to get a result. But now that it's the final, and you do have that kind of, pressure of you've been the top side all season, and it all comes down to, a Glory side that just probably, like I said, got nothing to lose and can go all out. It's going to be interesting to see how Sydney respond. I still think they'll be, classy enough to do the business, but Glory might give them a scare.
It's difficult, right? Because you talk about scoring early for Perth Glory, but you can, on the same hand, if Sydney score early and Perth go out them, Sydney are going to counter them to death. Both games that Sydney have lost this season have come sort of from really tight games that have stayed 0-0, and you see the Wanderers and such, they score late on and Sydney sort of press for that winner, but they leave it too late. So I think this is a sort of game that needs to stay 0-0 going into half time for Perth, and
I think so.
They need to just make it as most boring a game as possible, and then hope that the front three can show some individual brilliance, right? Because I think both scoring and conceding early is probably going to be against Perth Glory, surprisingly, and a very tough ask. Sydney have had the break. I guess Perth Glory want to see if that win, the confidence, the momentum can carry them forward. What's your prediction for this game? It's my head says Sydney FC just purely because their season, what they've done. But the pressure argument is interesting, and Perth Glory literally have nothing to lose. I don't think anyone's tipping them this week for good reason, I guess, with the defense. But what do you think is going to happen?
Oh, look, like you said, your head says you have to back Sydney FC. They didn't finish where they are out of a fluke. It's just been an amazing season from them. And like I said, from the outside looking in, I don't think the pressure's going to be there, the way they've been playing this season. But Glory do have a couple of those X-Factor players, Castro being one of them, and he's in red-hot form still. They countered City. Perth Glory did really well, and they can counter Sydney as well. They do have a chance. It's going to be tough. I think Glory have got nothing to lose. They can go all out. I just think against a better attack like Sydney FC, the Glory defence might get exposed a little bit. They'll be put under a lot more pressure, put it that way, when they've got guys like Bobo and Ninkovic there threading it through. It's going to be a tough one. And the other thing, again, there is, as good as Glory have been going forward, they're coming up against the best defence in the league. So I'm tipping Sydney. But I think Glory might give them a scare, and you might see something like a 2-1 or a 3-1 in the end for Sydney. But it might be in the balance for a while there, and then Sydney will kind of just run over the top of them at the end.
Yeah, I'm also going to tip Sydney. I think the first 15 minutes is going to be very interesting because we've seen Perth Glory in the last 2 weeks against Melbourne City come out and score 2 or 3 quick goals. Sydney FC have done that all season against teams. They look average and then they have this 15-minute period where they just kill off games. And I think Perth Glory, they've played last week. I'm not sure what Sydney have done in training in terms of friendlies and such. But if Perth Glory can start well, and I think that start needs to coincide with 2 or 3 goals, because I think, like you said, 1 isn't enough, and I think they need to put 2 past them quickly, like they did against City last week. If they can do that, they've got every chance. But if Sydney FC keep the game tight in the first half, they go into the second 0-0, I think they'll win. My prediction is probably like a 3-1. But yeah, fingers crossed for Glory.
Yeah. I mean, good luck to the Glory. I think if nothing else, they're going to entertain. But I think it might just be a bit of a stretch for them.
Yep, I agree. Let's go on to the interesting Melbourne Victory home game. It's difficult because everything we said about Sydney with the week off and their confidence, Melbourne Victory haven't really shown that they're a team in form, especially their front. Charisi, Beresha, even Rojas probably most especially, like he's gone off and Victory have sort of gone with him in terms of their form, the drop-off. I don't feel like this game has such a big advantage in terms of the home crowd. Like obviously it's going to be a massive sold-out stadium, but I think Brisbane will go into this game perhaps slight favourites for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think... Yeah, this one's more of a 50-50. Like you said, I don't think the home ground's going to come into it too much. And Victory are out of form. They really are. I mean, they're another team that kind of just really limped into the finals. Even though they finished second, their last few weeks were really uninspiring. And that's what we discussed, I think, last week, where it's that danger where, you know, your last couple of games are not that great and all of a sudden you have a week off and then the next game's a do or die game. That's going to be tough for them to prepare for, whereas Brisbane Roar, they're red hot. I mean, they were on fire against the Wanderers. They didn't have the goals to show for it, but the way they played was just, 100 miles an hour. Holman, again, just kind of roaming outside the box, always a threat. McLaren was good. Borello was good. Broich started off fairly poorly, but worked his way in on the second half. Brisbane looked really good, and I think they can take the game to victory here and really put pressure on them. McLaren's in clinical form. Barisha's not. Rojas has been quiet. Troisi's been off his game. The Melbourne Victory defence is probably a little bit questionable. I think Raw can push Victory here, and this one might go to extra time or even pens, I think.
I think the question mark is like what happens to Brisbane Roar midweek, because I think you talk about bringing a second string team to the game in the Asian Champions League, but like you look at players like Borello, he's been so important to Brisbane the last 3 weeks especially, and like if he has to play 90 minutes, like that is going to like nullify his impact in the game on the weekend. And like I just don't know. I don't know how you approach this game as Brisbane. Like do you throw out your second string, the players that you're probably going to want off the bench, like fit and ready to go? I mean, like it's such a tough thing to navigate.
That is true, and like you said, I mean, they said they're going to field a second string side, but obviously some players are going to have to play.
Yeah.
And obviously, the club has to still do the travel and all that sort of stuff. Up. That's right. So that's still going to take a little bit of a toll. I think they're going to Japan, so it's not the longest trip, but it's still a midweek trip on a plane and all that sort of stuff. And a grueling game as well against, J-League side. And then to fly back, then you got to go, to Melbourne and prepare for this. They do have the advantage, I guess, that it's on a Sunday, and I think the ACL's on might actually be tonight, or so they do at least have a little bit of a gap when they come back. I think, yeah, I mean, the longer the game, and obviously, and they played extra time and penalties on the weekend as well. So the fatigue could definitely be a factor. Melbourne Victory will be fresh, that's for sure. But just, it's one of those ones where you're just not sure. Do you want the momentum or do you want the rest? It just really depends on how your side's going, I guess. I think
I don't feel like the game against the Wanderers really gave him momentum like it did for Perth Glory against Melbourne City. Like, Brisbane Roar were very good. They hit the post, I think, 3 times.
Yeah.
Deserved to win the game, in my opinion, but I don't feel like it was the sort of performance that will fire them up for Melbourne victory. I feel like they expected to beat the Wanderers. They did beat the Wanderers, and now they've got to try to prepare the best they can with all this travel. And it's, I think the advantage in terms of momentum v form, versus rest, I think it does go to victory. I feel like they needed the break. It's just question marks over, like you said, Rojas, Troisi and such.
Yeah, and look, and maybe we're being too harsh on the victory. You know, at the end of the day, those guys like Berisha and Rojas are very, 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 very good players. You know, maybe we're just being a little bit harsh on them, that they should still be able to perform and turn it on in a finals campaign. And again, you know, they didn't finish second as a fluke. They've been really good all season. So I just feel like this is going to be a tight one. Melbourne victory, week off, home ground advantage. They got some big game players. Brisbane Roar, 3rd game in a week. Yeah. Look, I'm going to go with victory just as the home side and being the second one, second on the ladder for the season. But I think this one's going to be very, very tight. I think this one could go possibly all the way. Maybe even just, you know, extra time at the very least. But I'll give it to victory in a close one. I'm going to say maybe 2-1 for the victory in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to say that if it goes to extra time, victory will win. But I think Brisbane should have enough in the first 90.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a really low-scoring game. I think it'll be like a 1-0.
Wow.
And I'm going to tip Brisbane.
Wow. That's a huge up. If Roar win, I mean, even though we're saying it's 50-50, at the end of the day, if Brisbane go to Melbourne and knock off the victory, that's still a huge upset.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
But I think, like you said, extra time, Brisbane will run out of legs.
Yeah.
And, if it goes to past the 90, victory, certainly going to win. But, very tight game, tough to call. I'm looking forward to both games.
Yeah, there's going to be another cracking weekend of finals, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Let's leave the A-League there, because there was quite a bit of action in the EPL and the FA Cup. Let's go quickly to the EPL results. I think the big result for me is Liverpool losing to Crystal Palace. They're in some form. They've beaten Arsenal, Chelsea, and now Liverpool in the last, I want to say, month of football.
Benteke.
Yeah, Benteke's been great. Interesting Liverpool position in the ladder right now because they've played the 34 games, 4 left. They're on 66 points. They're only 2 ahead of City, and City have played 2 less games. So you would assume, though, I mean, City do play United, and they just came off the extra time with Arsenal, which we'll talk about later. But what do you think of the top 4 right now? Because Liverpool, that loss, I think, is huge.
Yeah, look, it is. And Benteke, I mean, comes back to haunt his old team there. Yeah, that's a huge result. I think Liverpool are just sliding down ever so slightly. Like I said, 2 more games than pretty much everyone else there. They're only 2 points ahead of City, 3 ahead of United, and the goal difference is negligible as well. Equal goal difference with City, 2 goals ahead of United. So they're in a bit of strife there, Liverpool. I'm not sure what's happened. They're just kind of petering out.
I think the injury to Mane has been massive.
Yeah, I mean, that has, but I mean, you shouldn't go down to Palace like that, even up against Benteke, and you kind of always knew that something like that was going to happen when those kind of players go up against their old side. They come back to haunt them, but they're on a bit of a slide, Liverpool. The only question mark, I guess, really is, you know, United now with a few injuries as well.
Yeah, Ibra's out for the season, potentially.
Yeah, I mean, look, Rooney's back in and he's done the business for them there, but that might hamper them a little bit, but both Manchester sides are now in the box seat to overtake Liverpool and knock them out of that Champions League spot, I think.
Ironically, both play each other on the Thursday, I think it might be, Thursday morning for us, I think it is, or Friday morning. Huge game because I think whoever wins will go above Liverpool. Have probably committed themselves to top 4 unless they self-destruct for the rest of the season. Pep he's come out and said that the typical was the better team, but lost to long balls and counter attacks. Similar to Spurs. Sorry, they said they were the better team against Chelsea in the FA Cup, but were beaten obviously. What's your prediction for the City and United game? Because as you said, United have huge injuries. City coming off the extra time. The game is until Thursday, so there is that rest. But it's a massive, massive game. I feel like even with Man United's injuries, I think they go in as slight favourites just purely because how good their defence has been.
I think so, and I think this is going to be an interesting battle between the managers because, I mean, if there's one thing that you know about Mourinho is that he makes it personal and he'll relish these kind of battles and he'll just see it as, I need to beat Pep. Yeah. How do I beat Pep? And he'll get into the mind games and all that sort of stuff. So from that point of view, I think United have the advantage. Pep's been a little bit naive at times this season in some of his decisions, maybe, being too open, too attacking, whatever it is, maybe just not understanding the nuances of the league and things like that. So I think Mourinho's got the edge on him there. And like you said, even with the injury, especially to Ibrahimovic, I don't think that's going to hurt United too much. I think they're a chance here, United. I think they're going to get all 3 points.
Yeah, I'm tipping United as well. I think the Ibra injury will hurt them in the games that they air quotes should win, like the Swansea game on the Sunday. Those types of games where you need like a prolific goal scorer. Yeah, I think that's the type of game we'll see if United can carry across. But in this big game, you talk about Jose's tactics, how he sort of like has key plans for individual players of each team. I think Man United will win, and I think if they do, they're right in for a top 4 finish, which is, I guess, really good for them considering how they've struggled to get back in for so many years now.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, if United finish top 4...
they're going to be scary next season.
Yeah, and like you said, then it's all of a sudden normal programming has resumed and, all of a sudden the last couple of seasons for United are forgotten about with, Van Gaal and all that sort of stuff and they're kind of just back in the mix and back into the top 4 and I think this time they're not going to let it go like they have, and you could see the dawn of a new era. God help us all, but it could be the start of something special for United fans with Mourinho there, at least for another year until he sort of pisses everyone off and just blows up and nukes the joint. But I think like you said, watch out for next year because they're going to top up and they're going to come back stronger and stronger. But I mean, that's just alarm bells for teams like Arsenal.
Yeah. What do you think of them? Like, we'll talk about the FA Cup in a minute, but the weekend, they obviously play Leicester on the Wednesday, and Spurs have to play Crystal Palace, which will be interesting. But what do you make of the Sunday game, the big North London derby? Arsenal obviously having success in the FA Cup, Spurs not so. Arsenal lose, the top 4's done. If they win, it raises question marks on like where Arsenal can finish, especially because Liverpool stumbled. What do you make of the game? I think Spurs, obviously the favourites, defensively so much better. Harry Kane's in excellent form, same with Dele Alli. Do you think Arsenal have any chance in the game off the back of what they did against City?
I mean, they do. They obviously they've still got quality there. Their top 4 chances are still alive, I guess, mathematically. They've only played 31 compared to at least everyone else has pretty much played at least 32, if not 34, like Liverpool and Everton. So, if Arsenal go on a winning streak, as they have done towards the end of a lot of seasons, they could be back in the game. If they pick up maximum points from the next 3 games, for example, they're right back in.
Well, they have to do that, right? There's no room for error. They draw against Leicester and it's over.
That's right. But I think really the question here is, are Tottenham the real deal? Because we've seen them last season ever so close, couldn't get it done. Here they are again. They're second. They're in with a shot. They're playing really good football. They got a better goal difference than Chelsea. This is a must win for Tottenham.
Yeah,
really, if they want a shot at the title. So as much as people love to, and this is again, it just goes back to that whole thing that I think I've probably been harping on a lot about this season is Tottenham just don't get spoken about enough. And again, probably not just us, but a lot of people like, what's happening at Arsenal? Or can Arsenal do this? But really, I think this game is all about Tottenham. Are they the real deal?
I feel like the reason that is because it's all about expectations. And Pochettino came out and said that Spurs are the biggest team in London. Like, that's absurd because Arsenal and Chelsea are both far bigger. And
that's right. Probably West Ham are, up there with
historically,
Tottenham.
I think they would be, yeah. But what do you make of Pochettino himself, right? Because I really rate him. I think he gets the team playing great, possession-based, attacking football. But you look at him; he's been manager for 8 years now. Hasn't won a trophy, League Cup, FA Cups, all eluded him. He built a Southampton team that was very aggressive, very attacking, but didn't win a trophy. Now he's been at Spurs. They've title challenged in the last 2 seasons, but keep in mind that was once against a Leicester team that had never won. And now they're close to Chelsea, but probably a little too far away. So what do you make of Pochettino, right? Because for all his reputation, he hasn't won anything.
Yeah, well, and this is a thing now. I think this is kind of make or break for Tottenham. Like you said, they're always threatening, but they just can't take that next step and actually make it count. And this is, again, they're only 4 points down. This is a must-win, really, for them. And if they want to be a championship side and they want to be a top team and the number one, they got to smash Arsenal. They got to put Arsenal away 3-0 and really heap the pressure on Chelsea. And that's, like you said, that's probably been a question mark now for them in the last couple of seasons, where they've threatened, but they've never really been talked about because, like you said, people have probably never really taken them seriously and they haven't had a reason to. So I think this is a huge game for them. I think they can beat Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree.
I think they probably will. Arsenal, They did well in the FA Cup again, and FA Cup seems to be a competition that's working well for them over the last few seasons at least. But I think against Tottenham now, it's going to be too tough for them. I think we'll see the old Arsenal come out. They'll slip. They'll just lack that killer instinct. And like you said, a few of the Tottenham players are in real red hot form. I think 3 points for Tottenham here, and then it's going to get really interesting.
I think the Spurs of yesteryear, they would go to Palace on Wednesday, they'd lose or draw, and then they'd go into the Arsenal game and they'd panic, and Arsenal would roll them over. I think a lot depends on the games before the North London derby. If Arsenal beat Leicester and Palace pick up points against Spurs, then look out for the game. So I think a lot will determine what happens before it. But yeah, big question marks for Spurs. If they're going to do it, they have to do it this season. Chelsea don't look the team that they were even a month ago. So, I mean, it's all up for grabs. And historically, Spurs, this is when they've struggled. So we'll see how Pochettino goes with his players.
Yeah, Chelsea have stumbled, and what looked like a title race that was all but over a month ago, it's right back on now, and Chelsea have given Tottenham the window. So yeah, it's time to step up and let's see what they can do. Because like you said, maybe if they stumble again here now, maybe there should be some pressure on Pochettino then. Because
I think so, yeah.
If he's talking tough like that they are the biggest team in London, they are spending a fair bit of money on players. And they're close, and then they just can't take that final step. Maybe there needs to be a bit of pressure on him.
Yeah, I think even inside the club, I think the expectations have to change because, we'll talk about the Champions League right now, but Spurs are a team that doesn't seem to progress in the Champions League. Same with Manchester City. They're a team that have such great pedigree in terms of their playing list, but they don't seem to translate into the biggest stage. So let's go on to the Champions League. Monaco comfortable against Dortmund. This was the night after our last week's podcast, and we saw Barcelona fail to repeat their heroics against Juventus. But I don't know if you saw, but they did beat Real Madrid. Messi at his best again.
Yeah, wow. Incredible.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. I think he's got 500 goals for Barcelona now. It's just unreal. In terms of the Champions League draw, the semi-final did get made. It's Juventus versus Monaco and Atletico versus Real Madrid. I did say I hope that it was a Spanish semi-final because I just don't want to see that in the actual final itself. What do you make of the two ties? Juventus versus Monaco is very, very interesting. You've got Juventus who such great defenders, good on the counter, quick, and you've got Monaco who are all about attack. it's built for an absolutely amazing semi-final between the two clubs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's set up perfectly for. I think it's going to be a Real Madrid-Juventus final, absolutely.
Which would be amazing.
That would be a cracker.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, Monaco-Juventus will be an interesting one, but you saw there, I mean, Juventus 0-0 against Barcelona, that's an achievement. And there was an interesting quote there from the Juventus manager where he was basically saying something to the effect of, we could have played Barcelona
for like 29 hours or something.
We could have played them all day and they wouldn't have scored. And that's Italian football for you, and that's what Juventus are so good at is, they got the job done in the first leg, and it's not like they parked the bus or anything.
Oh,
They're just too good. They're just too good to get past, and I think, we predicted that they weren't going to be naive against Barcelona, and let them have an inch, and it was just a masterstroke for them. I think as good as Monaco are and as attacking as they are, Juventus are very, very good going forward themselves, and if the Barcelona result shows anything, is that they're almost impossible to break down. So I think Juventus should be the favourites in that one. And Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid, again, as good as Atletico are, I think it's going to be the Cristiano Ronaldo show probably. You'll see some brilliance from Real Madrid and sets it up for an amazing final. But I think that one's probably more 50-50 than Monaco-Juventus.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? Because with the La Liga race so in the balance right now, and you throw in like an extra 2 Spanish games with the semi-final, it becomes difficult, right? Because Real Madrid stumbled against Barcelona. It just purely depends on the pressure and how their players respond, because I could see Atletico knocking off Madrid. They've done it before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Madrid should go through on 2 legs, but yeah, very tight. Imagine a Monaco versus Atletico Madrid final. I mean, it seems hard to believe, but it's an interesting. Both ties are very, very interesting. I feel like Juventus and Monaco is not 50-50, but I feel like it's still close, like a 60-40. I think Monaco have a big chance.
They do have a chance. I mean, they've got the home leg first up, and that's really going to be telling. I think if Juventus
shut them out, it's over.
Well, yeah, and even if Juventus get the away goal, I think that might be all they need for that second leg. I think it'll be tough to beat at home. But this goes back to what you were saying. Like, you look at the EPL teams struggling in the Champions League, and you just look at teams like Real Madrid or a Barcelona or a Juventus, and you compare them to any EPL side, and the EPL has all these, at least for us, household names and things like that, but they just don't have the quality that in the EPL. I think even a team like Manchester City, do they have the quality of in that first 11 of a side like Juventus? I just think the EPL, from our perspective, it's probably just a little bit overrated. It's an exciting league and it's probably more even. But you look at those top teams in the other leagues, Real Madrid, Juventus, they're just a step above.
It's a big conversation, one that it's like very detailed, because like you look at it on paper, Juventus, Monaco, and Atletico Madrid. Sorry, not on paper. I mean financially, like those 3 clubs don't compete with the top teams in England. Yeah. On paper, Monaco probably don't have a better team than the top, say, like 5 in England. But they've got attackers that do it on the big stages. Like for everything you say about Harry Kane and such, like they don't seem to do it in Europe.
No.
And that's where players become like, household names. And England just seem to be naive in the Champions League. I don't think the FA helped them with the format of the English Premier League. I think having 2 cups with the league, and we talk about the league, and it's probably the most competitive in world football. None of that helps the representation of English clubs in the Champions League, because they have to put so much out into the games themselves. And I think maybe if the English Cup wasn't around, then you'd see a better performance. But yeah, like you see a team like Monaco go through. They knocked out City this season. They knocked out Arsenal, I think it was the season before. And English clubs have to do better. And it's a complicated problem. But not a good look for any EPL team.
No, I mean, like you said, it's a huge discussion, and something that's been around for a while. But I mean, you look at it, and you just can't see it changing anytime soon. With teams like Barcelona and Juventus and the like, they're just on another level. But yeah, like you said, that's a massive discussion. But we'll say that for another time. But it's going to be an interesting semi-finals in the Champions League, that's for sure.
Yeah, it should be fantastic. Let's just quickly go over the FA Cup. We've talked about it, as we spoke about the EPL, but Arsenal beat City, Chelsea beat Spurs. What do you make of the final? Obviously, it's not till May the 28th, but a huge game, probably has massive implications for Arsene Wenger's future. I'll probably say that, and tomorrow he'll sign a new contract, but what do you make of the two semi-final games, and do you think Arsenal have any chance in the big final in Wembley?
Oh, look, they do, just because they've been there, done that now.
Yeah, 2 seasons, the last 3.
Yeah, and I think we kind of predicted it that they would get the job done against City.
Yeah.
It was a good performance from them.
Yeah.
And this is the frustrating thing about Arsenal, is that they can do that against the City, and then, they will go down to a Burnley or something like that. So that's what's frustrating about Arsenal. But, I mean, look, the script is written for Chelsea to take out the double here. Whether they, it's going to be interesting to see where they're at in a month in the EPL. That's going to be, I think, crucial. I think Arsenal as well, where they're at, because if they're out of the top 4 and things like that, and it could be backs to the wall, it could be
the futures of like Ozil, Alexis, Arsene Wenger could be much clearer. If it's like negative, like the EPL results, like it could be not a good atmosphere going into that final.
That's right. But look, I mean, like I said, it's interesting that all of a sudden the FA Cup's become Arsenal's, I don't know, stomping ground. Like they've just been so good.
Well, it's definitely become Arsene Wenger's reprieve, because his last contract when he signed was against Hull. We watched that together, remember, at Perth Casino.
Yeah, that's right.
If Arsene Wenger lost that, he wasn't signing a contract. So, I mean, this is now 2 seasons out of the 3 that they've been involved in that his contract's on the line. And, I mean, credit to him that when that's happened, he's produced the goods. So, I mean, it's a huge game for Arsenal as a club, because, like, the implications are massive, like, going forward.
Yeah, look, I think I just want to see a cracking game. It's 2 big teams. It's all on the line. I think it's probably Arsenal obviously more to play for.
Yeah, depending on how Chelsea go in the league. Yeah,
that's right. And so I just want to see a cracking game and an all-out attack. And like you said, that whole game against Arsenal, that was a typical Arsenal performance, wasn't it? An absolute nail biter. I don't think they're going to have that kind of luxury against Chelsea.
No, definitely not.
I think we'll definitely preview it as we get closer, because we'll see what kind of form the teams are in and who's in and who's out. But I mean, if I had to pick a team right now, I'd say Chelsea easily.
Yeah, me too. We will of course go back later in May. I think that'll be a time we do go back with the podcast, because the A-League will end soon. So we'll come back and we'll talk about the Champions League final, the FA Cup, and we'll discuss what's happened in the EPL.
I might have to do a one-off special.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
For the fans.
For the fans. I think we'll leave this week's episode here. Obviously a big week coming with the semi-finals and the EPL to resume. A lot of games coming, especially midweek. Bit difficult for Australians because of working commitments and such. But thank you for joining me once again, Edin.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody for watching. You can find us at www.theaverageaustralian.com. We're also on iTunes, YouTube, SoundCloud, and Patreon. Please do like, subscribe wherever humanly possible. You can, of course, still like and abuse us. That helps too. Yep. But we'll
take what we can get.
We take everything we can get. Enjoy the rest of your public holiday, Edin.
Thank you.
And we'll be back this time next week. So until then, bye-bye.
Bye.